Welcome you all to today's Quorum Court. Have a cell phone, please turn it off. Matt, would you lead us in our morning invocation and pledge allegiance?
Lord, we think of this time to come together today to see what we can do better as a county, Lord. Just give us the wisdom and guidance that we need to do this. And I just ask that you also be with our servicemen and our local officers, Lord, as they do their job, just protect them. And just bless this day. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jamie, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Beaton?
Here.
Mr. Flake?
Here.
Mr. Garrison?
Here.
Mr. Howerton? Mr. McNeely?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Ritchie?
Here.
Mr. Griggs?
Here.
Mr. Swafford?
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like everyone to hear the film. Next item of business is approval of the agenda.
Move we approve.
John moved with approve. Jack second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item of business is disposition of journal proceedings, approval of the previous minutes, any additions or corrections. Larry moved to adopt, Ron second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item of business is public comment, 3 minutes. Do we have any? If not, we'll move on to miscellaneous. We don't have anything there. We don't have any old business. We'll move into new business. Under A, would you read that, Ms. Ginger, please?
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Carroll, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled. Is ordinance declaring that the Carroll County Sheriff will collect fines assessed in the circuit court. Whereas Act 1262 of 1995 states that the Quorum Court of each county of the state shall designate a county official, agency, or department or private contractor who shall be primarily responsible for the collection of fines assessed in the circuit court of the state. Now therefore be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Carroll, State of Arkansas, that pursuant to the Act 1262 of 1995, the Carroll County Sheriff is hereby appointed to collect fines, fees, and costs assessed in the circuit court of Carroll County, Arkansas.
I move we approve.
Ron moved to approve, John second. Any discussion?
I think we discussed it as much as we need to last time. I'd just like to say to satisfy Tim's objection, I changed a couple of words in it. I don't think it was necessary. That was the ordinance we'd operated under while Ramona's been collecting, but I think it's pretty simple. If you like the way Ramona's doing it, you want to continue that, then you vote no. If you think we ought to try something new and see if we can collect money, you vote yes. And I have a suggestion for what to do with money if we could collect it that isn't included in this ordinance, but it's what I would like to do with the money if we can collect it. I would like to see any money we collect be divided up among the people on a per diem basis, the people who work during the snow days when the courthouse is closed. The road guys, the deputy sheriffs, the dispatchers, the ones who were in. I know Jamie and the election coordinator came in for election day. But people who came in through the weather to work while the courthouse was closed, while the weather was so bad, they deserve a bonus, and I'd like to see any money, excess money that we can collect on fees and fines be divided up proportionately on a daily basis for people who work. But that's the second step. We got to collect some money first. We haven't collected much in a long time, so that's all I have to say.
Any more discussion? Okay?
I'd like to hear from a moment. Like I said, we asked her to bring some information to the board, you know, at the last meeting. I forget what kind of figure she came up with.
Ramon?
Okay. It was laborious, but got it done. We have criminal things that we collect on. There are domestic court costs that are assessed, and those are almost never paid. We have juvenile as well. The bottom line total that I came up with that went back as far as, I believe, 1983 was the oldest case number that I saw, through February 28th of this year. So the total amount on the books through the 28th is $2,824,187.71. Now, let me quantify that by saying a large portion of that, or a goodly portion of that, is victim restitution, which can't be touched, of course. And I know of one case that comes to my mind immediately, and they owe $125,000 in victim restitution. So that takes a good chunk out of it. There were several others that were $50,000 and $27,000. There was a lot of it that was victim restitution. Another portion of it is court costs, which the state, we get to keep a little portion of that. All of the DNA fees go to Little Rock. All of the public defender fees go to Little Rock. Thinking what else? Court technology fees go to Little Rock. So, even though this sounds like a really big number, that's definitely not money in hand. And I found, I believe, 7 that we had actually marked on their pay sheet that they were deceased, but they just hadn't been pulled out of there. So there's probably many more that have been deceased, and we just haven't received that notification or been able to find it. They moved to other states and may die, and we don't have any kind of way to know. Sounds like a lot, but it's not real money in your hand.
John?
When you collected that data, did you do it by year?
No, I just took the pay books.
So we couldn't get any figure for the last 10 years, say.
Yeah.
How many awards do you have out for active warrants out for these people that owe?
Just for non-payment, there was a slew of them that we had written on there, outstanding warrant. I did not tabulate that, but I couldn't tell you exactly how many, but I would say that there are a bunch that we don't know where they are, so therefore they have not been served, but the warrants are active.
Sheriff, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I provided you the information last Quorum Court meeting about the number of outstanding felony failure to pay warrants. That was your last package.
Ron?
I'm quite concerned about the victim restitution. I'd like to see that money go back to the victims. I think we should be aggressively trying to collect that. That's not something to not consider, and it sounds, and I don't want to put words in your mouth for a moment, but it sounds to me like you're saying you don't think there's enough money there to make it worthy of your time to collect it. Is that right?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
So we got
But I
almost
will
$3 million owed. Some significant part of that is victim restitution. Some part of it is court costs and fees to the state. But you think maybe a third of it could come to us? Maybe a third to the victims? That puts money in the county that gets spent on those other things. It's worse than I thought. I thought we might have a maximum of $2 million owing. We got almost $3 million owing. We've done nothing to collect it. It's high time we did something. I think we need to pass this ordinance. and see if the sheriff can do better. If he can't do better, let's look at it in 6 months, let's make an election issue of it, and if he can't collect better, we'll make a big fuss in September before the election about how the sheriff hasn't done a good job. Ramona says it's an election issue now. Let's make an election issue.
And Ramona and I don't think ever said it was an election issue. We all did at this table. And it is. And it's quite obvious that it is, pardon me. Let me ask you, Ramona, I know in the federal system, if the feds find somebody and there is victim restitution involved, the feds get their money first, irrespective of what's owed to the other people. That's the federal system. We're not in that position here, are we? Restitution is paid first, am I correct? And then the fines?
Well, it used to be that way, but the law did change this past year, where we have to pay the court costs first.
Court costs, yeah.
Court costs.
Okay.
Then I think the public defender fees have to come next. And those go to the rock, all of it. And, yeah, so they pay the public defender's fees, what it boils down to. The processing fees, half of the first $5 goes to pay for court reporters and trial court assistants. That money goes to the rock. And then the victims comes next. But I would say, Mr. Blake, that I don't agree with you at all that we have done nothing to collect the fines. We do have those failure to pay warrants out there. We have old ones. We have newer ones. And I do believe that my duty as collector of the fines is when they come in to pay me, I collect it, I account for it, I disperse it. I'm not law enforcement. I cannot go out and get them. The sheriff can't go out and get them without a warrant. And you say I'm passing the buck. And you say I'm pointing the finger and saying it's somebody else's fault. But we all have to work together in sync. One does their job, the next one does their job, the next one does their job.
Okay.
And so that's how it's got to go.
I don't want to put down on the spot, but in circuit court, what role does the prosecutor's office play as far as on failure to appear in the contempt of court and not doing what they're supposed to do? What is your guys' role in this?
Well, it depends on where you are in the process. If they're a current probation case, then the probation officer monitors payment now. There was a long period where the probation office was not monitoring those payments. That has since changed, so we're doing much better on that. Probation officer monitors those payments. If they're not paying or if they're having other violations, then they present a petition to us and we file a petition to revoke, and it goes through the process that way. If it's an old case that is done, that has money owing, that's a failure to pay, and the court issues warrants on those. And the prosecutor really is just kind of out of the loop.
John?
I think the main point we need to consider is that it hasn't been working very well. And I think it's our responsibility, if we can see a way to improve it, it's our responsibility to make that change.
Don?
Last month we heard everybody talk, the judge and sheriff and Ramona, and when I left, I thought, goodness gracious, if that businesses don't operate like this, nobody would survive, no business could survive working like this. Because so many places there's not being done, and then the money that's not collected, you have to have a lot of capital to stay in business. So, like John said, that maybe we do need something to help out here. And we're still going to need people to cooperate, the judge, and get the issues of the warrants, and then collection, and then the distribution. So, something needs to be done.
Lamont?
Yeah, I concur. We are given the job of designating somebody to collect the fines. I'm just not satisfied hearing that we have a slew of bunch, a large number. That just doesn't tell me anything. I mean, my idea of what a slew is, or a bunch, is drastically different, or could be drastically different from what somebody else says. I'm not particularly sold on the idea that
it ought to go to the sheriff's office either, but for purposes of making some movement on this, I'm going to support the ordinance.
Galen, you next.
I mean, my issue is, I mean, there's several different parties involved in collecting this fine. It's not just one individual office. I mean, you have probation office, you've got the prosecutor's office, you've got the clerk's office, and you have the sheriff's office serving as one. Prior to, we come in our own judicial district, we had other judges prior to 99, and they would issue warrants, contempt of court warrants. So, the warrant number, it says it's a failure to appear, there's no warrants out there for contempt of court. This ordinance is just saying, these people are going to pay here to the sheriff's office, and now, I don't see how, where we're going to tell these people where they're going to pay is going to make any difference on the collection. Do we need to? I support that it should be automated. I really do support that it should be an automated stuff so that you don't have the numbers of salute. But just switching it for where the people have to pay, I don't think that's the answer.
Sure.
The point I'm trying to make is that, and I offered it several years ago to help Ramona, because we cannot collect the revenue unless the warrants are issued. That's the key to this whole process working. And when I became sheriff, one thing that we did, we had the amnesty, then we had warrant sweeps, and now I have a warrant detail that goes through all of the warrants. And then I think Tim brought it up last time about people living out of state. Last month, for some reason, we had the best month we ever had. We sent out 32 letters. We had 28 people send back payment in full. $15,000. We also sent a number of names to the state for people filing taxes, and they sent us a check for $611, but that's not a lot of money. But the thing that the state informed us of is that once we go through the proper procedures and we notify them that this person is indebted to us for back payment, I don't have to contact the state every year and say this person is delinquent. For example, if they owe us $1,000, they collect $100 on their tax return, they remain on their books for a balance of $900. So every time they file a tax return, we get some of the money. But there is a lot of money out there, and I don't care who's responsible for doing it. I'll be glad to give you my support, my staff, to help you do it, but I cannot do my job to collect the money for the county unless I get the warrants to serve. And whether it's $50,000 or $100,000, that's a lot of money, because when you went through the budget process this year, you went line item by line item to pull out several $100s on some line items. So whether it's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, that's a lot of money as far as I'm concerned. And we want to do our part to collect money for the county.
Don?
Ramona, how long did it take you to get this information together?
It took me about 5 full days.
And like we're talking about automation, you could have had done 30 seconds through computerized system. Because, matter of fact, Little Hardware, well, 84 years old, they finally went to computers out and so forth. And we had guys that 30 years, 35 years, that did not want to try it. They still want to write hand tickets. Every one of them, except for one, is glad that we had it. It's a lot faster. Everybody can read what's computerized. But the bookkeepers have had this computer system for a long time, because when it comes to statements, they want to get those statements out there like that. Mayor Miller wants to know who's 90 days, 100 days, and 20 days over, so he can call them up. So this automation will be somewhat limited. So 5 days, 30 seconds or something like that, you could have a legitimate
I would like to tell you, Jack, you had your hand up over prior to you saying that 5 full days was just me, too. I didn't have my people doing it. They had their own work to do. I spent the time doing it. But anyway, and because of the time constraint, I didn't break it down, and so glue and bunch is all I could give you. If I had had more time, and you have to stop and think. I didn't even get a month because you all had moved the meeting back. So I barely had 3 weeks to get this done. We had snow and we were closed, and so anyway, excuses notwithstanding. But I have checked in the meantime too with Boone County, and I had mentioned that last time because I did this a couple of years ago. And then they use something called the Tiger program down there, and they were okay with it, but you know, it didn't do everything they wanted it to do. I called Washington County and spoke to Norma Preston, who had been the one that handled the collections of the fines and stuff for 30 years. And she said right now they are using a program called COTT, C-O-T-T. She said it is very expensive and it is not working very well. This is the fourth system that they have used since she's been doing this and when they went computers. And she said, and they're still not fully doing what they needed to do. She said the Quorum Court over there gave the fine collections to the sheriff, and 1 year later it was right back to the clerk again. So it didn't work any better there. And there's lots of reports that have to be made. And who is going to be doing the dispersing of the money? There's the collection of the money. Then who disperses the money to all these different entities, all these different victims, makes the reports? But am I still going to have to do that, and he'll just report to me what money has been collected? So she said it didn't work very well, and they gave it right back to the clerk. And she said that they do not take payments online. That had been mentioned to me, that maybe we could try doing that. And she said they do not use credit or debit cards, either cash, check, or money order. It's the only thing they use. Now that's Washington County, and that's a heck of a lot bigger than we are, and they're still not going that route. I mentioned to you last month that we had just gone on to the Context program, which is the court docketing and that type of thing. That's from the state. That program is free. They have told us that there will be a receipting program for the collection, you know, and dispersal of whatnot of the fines, but they suggested, and that program would be free to us from the state, they suggested that we get more familiar with our court docketing before we tried to get another thing that we had to start. And I had to do the deed recording program because the provider I had was going out of business. And so I had to do that. You said I've automated everything but this. Okay. Well, I have to do the things that I have to do to operate my office in the way that it has to be operated. So if you try to throw 3 or 4 brand new things all at once, that's pretty tough. That's pretty hard to do. But we've been on the Recorders program a little over a year. We're comfortable with that. We're cool. The Context program we've been on since December. They told us we probably should wait at least a year before we started with the receiving program. I also have a personal friend who offered to write a program for us for free, which sounds wonderful, but then who would support it? You know, I've got to have that, and so I don't think that that's an option for me, although I thought it was a very gracious offer for him to give me that, to say, we'll do it for you for free, and I'll write it however you want it to be written. But most of the clerks that I talked to at our meeting, which we just had the 12th, 13th, and 14th down in Hot Springs, very few of them are automated, and they said it's hard to get one that will keep track of all those different categories, the balances, the drop downs, the total balance, the who it goes to. So I'm doing the best I can, and I will automate it. I will. Whether I'm under compulsion or not, that's one of my plans to do that. I just can't do it right this second.
How much of your manpower, or lady power, I guess, deals with the collections?
We do so many different things in our office, that's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
But whoever's available at the time when somebody comes in, jumps up and runs to the counter, waits on them, takes their money.
Well, that's my question. If we take it for you, get it to the sheriff, does the sheriff will need more people to do it? If so, do you take less people to do your job? I mean, we've already been told once we've moved this, we'll have to talk about it later, you know, we can do this and not hire anybody else, that's not going to work out there. But that's my point, is it not getting done because you don't have enough people, or you just got too much stuff to do in your office?
No, I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's that cycle of passing the ball. Each one does their part. And we do as we can. We get those lists. I'm working on that too.
Edwin?
Like Ramona said, everybody has to do their part. It's not like normal hardware where there's an outstanding bill, you take any percentage of collections. There's a process. And the judge has to take some ownership in this also. Because the judge, if you get a list and it's sitting on the judge's desk to get your warrant signed, there's a process. Maybe the judge has ownership. Unfortunately, Ramona has ownership, and then unfortunately, the sheriff's office has ownership. Now, they're doing the best they can, but there's some old warrants out there. Like she said, there's a 1983. Last time I was in the sheriff's office, they got filing cabinets full of old warrants. There's this tons of stuff. But you get in the situation, Ramona made a good point. We're going to pass an ordinance to this. Well, who's going to do the rear distribution? We're fixing to discuss an ordinance about audio taping that's required, but who's responsible for actually doing it? I think before we pass this, we need to really understand if we're going to pass this, all the steps that need to take place. Just because we pass an ordinance, there's more to it than just saying, okay, sheriff, they're collecting. Is he going to be responsible for dispersing the money to the treasurer's office, or is it still going to remain there? So there's lots of unanswered questions out here because, yeah, $2.8 million is a lot of money. I agree. But, yes, it needs to be collected. But also, the people out there who owe the money takes ownership of this too. They need to start paying.
Sure, that is over.
Just for some numbers, talking about warrants. From 2000 to 2006, the previous 7 years, there was 8,699 warrants entered into the system. There was 8,117 served, which means there was 582 more entered and served. In the last 7 years since I've been sheriff, there was 8,594 warrants entered, 8,874 served, 280 more served than entered into the system.
Obviously, whoever has the job of collection, everybody has to cooperate. Ramona's got to be involved, the judge has to be involved. We can sit here and say all kinds of bad things about the judge. He's not here to answer. But the judge has to work at it, Ramona has to work at it, the sheriff has to work at it. The sheriff has some different ways of doing things that he can do to collect it that Ramona can't. That's all I'm suggesting. The money still follows the same trail. If he collects the money, it goes to the treasurer's office, just like any money the county collects goes into the treasury. That's where it goes, and then it's dispersed by the people that are supposed to disperse it. So all we're changing is the person who does the collection effort. The sheriff can go out and get driver's licenses, he can attach tax returns, he can do these things. He's already had some experience doing it. All I'm saying is what we're doing is not working well. Let's try something different. If it doesn't work, take it away from him. We can try a private collector. Maybe Ramona will be automated by then. She can take it back. I don't care. I just like to see something done. We rarely do anything. We sit here and pontificate and throw the baloney back and forth, but we don't do anything. Let's do something and change this and see if it works. If it doesn't work, fine, we'll change it back.
Yes.
Ramona?
Well, I think throwing back and forth, the actual duty of doing this is going to cause more problems than leaving it alone. Because, here's all this paperwork that's going to have to go to them. And if it doesn't work, it's all going to have to come back to me again. And we're going to have to straighten out where each one was when we picked it up. So I think that's not a good idea at all. But, goodness, I had another thought a while ago, and it has left me.
We're not assuming that it's not going to work.
You're out over, John.
I know what it was. Even after the sheriff goes out and arrests those people, then they have to come back into court and the judge has to have them on his docket, which is already pretty full, let me tell you. And it clogs the whole system, and so you cannot do it. Logistically, I think it is impossible that we issue however many warrants there are. I believe there was 1,473 that I entered. There is no way you can issue that many warrants in a quick period of time. The sheriff couldn't serve that many warrants in a quick period of time. The judge most certainly could not have them on the docket in that period of time. You've got to think of the overall picture, the logistics of the whole picture. It's not just me collecting or failing to collect. It's the whole ball of wax. And I just don't see how in the world the sheriff thinks he could do it without another person.
Galen?
How much has been collected this month?
Well, I haven't done the figures yet on that.
On a yearly basis, that would be about $150,000, so we are doing something. I mean, it makes it sound like we're not doing anything, but for the fines and costs, just on the court part of Ramona's office, that's only part of the money she collects. It'd be about $150,000 a year.
John, I believe you're in that.
No, pass.
Ramona, you said you went back to 1983. Do you off the top of your head know whether there was a warrant issued for that human being, whoever it might have been?
That particular one?
Yeah, 83.
I don't know, I couldn't tell you. Another thought that I had when Galen mentioned the file drawers full of warrants. We have a file drawer absolutely so full we can't get anything else in it. And those are for new charges. Those are not for failure to pay. Those are strictly for outstanding warrants for crimes that have been committed that those people have never been arrested. So there's much more to the job. Much more.
Larry?
Does the sheriff's office already have the automation that they need to do this? Or are we talking about, are we going to need some automation in both offices for this particular thing?
No, I think really the Betty's here, because really they do in district court would be the same thing we're going to be doing in county court, because I forgot what the name of the system that they have in virtual justice. Okay, and I'll make it very, very brief how that works, is at the end of the month, all those people who have come in and made their payments, okay, those who have failed to make their payments at the end of the month, they press a key and it generates all the warrants for those delinquents, those who have not made their payments. Then they generate the warrants, and the warrant comes over to us, then we go out and serve the warrants. And we talk about collections, and one thing that I have trouble understanding is that I am required by law to collect money for district court. So all the people that come in and make payments for outstanding fines and fees, by law, I have to collect it for the district court. As to why circuit court, they collect their own, I don't understand why there's a difference in the two. I am collecting the money for the district court, and we don't need additional people for the collection of money.
I was just trying to make sure that if you handle one part and Ramona handles another part, that we're not going to need automation in both places.
Ron,
I'd just like to ask that we call the question and vote on this and get it over with. I think it's been talked about enough.
motion. Been made, there's a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Call for the vote.
Mr. Deaton?
No.
Mr. Flake?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
No.
Mr. McNeely?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
No.
Mr. Swafford?
No, not this time.
Let's tied. 5 yes, 5 no, 1 absent. Where do we go from here?
It fails. If it doesn't pass, it fails, so.
Ordinance failing. Next item of business JP's comments.
We've got an item of business on these comments. I think that should probably come first, shouldn't it? Somebody...
Sorry.
That's what mine said, JP comments. You have a definition about it?
Well, you know,
It's got something listed.
Yeah, I'll leave some there with it, Sam.
To be,
the listed item, I think, goes first.
Can you read that, please, Mr. Chairman?
It's for discussion, Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jack put it on, and Jack just needs to discuss it.
Yes, you're right.
I asked him, excuse me, I asked him to put this thing on the agenda to talk about, we passed in '09, we didn't, there was an ordinance passed in '09 to start taping these meetings and stuff. And then in 2011, Mr. Reeves come up with an ordinance that we start putting this on the internet so people that could not come to these meetings could watch it. So it's kind of a sad deal that we're the governing body and elected officials, and we're not following our own rules and regulations. I said for last week, or the last meeting, and taped that, and I did make one little minor mistake on it, but most of it come out pretty good, except the fact is, the problem is not the taping of this, it's somebody with the knowledge to extract it from the machine. It's very easy to get the audio part off of the machine, but the video part is very difficult to do. You got to reformat it. Mr. Clatt come out and looked at it, he copied it and did not get it right. I had, Joanne, would you like to jump in the middle of this thing?
I contacted Dan at Wilson's TV, who put the system in, and he said he would be more than happy to come down and teach somebody or several somebodies how to extract the information and how to make sure the video worked. And so we just have to set up a time and appointment. I asked him to come to today's meeting, and he couldn't, but he is willing to come and show us what we need to know to run the system. We just have to designate who that's going to be and get somebody to learn.
My point is that we had one person that knew how to do this. I strongly disagree with ever having that happen again. We need 4 or 5 people from different departments within the county to be trained to extract this information and get it to the people it's supposed to go to, and us continue to follow the regulations and the resolutions that we pass, or we rescind these, whichever. It doesn't matter whichever way. I think we owe it to the public out there. A lot of them are handicapped or whatever, or just they work and can't get out to watch this, and they are interested in the county government, and they like to watch this thing on the internet. And we need to do one or the other, is get it working right. If with many people with the knowledge how to make it work right, or us to do away with it.
Ron? I'd suggest that we get Wilson's to come over, or somebody to come over and train 4 or 5 people. Rhonda from the judge's office, one from Jamie's office, one from Ramona's office. Get them from different offices, and we can rotate them so nobody has it every month. So you do it once or twice a year. Everybody kind of keeps up with it. Joanne can do it once.
I still think you need the designation of whose office is responsible.
Somebody needs to be primary. Well, I think the courthouse and courthouse security and everything in the courthouse falls under the judge. The judge is in charge of the courthouse. So he would be primary, but we could have a number of people who assist in getting this done, so it's not a burden on anybody, and if somebody's sick or gone 1 month, we have several others who can fill in. It's not a difficult thing once you're trained, and I suspect they can be trained fairly quickly. Let several departments designate someone and get it done.
Anyone else? Kevin?
Who's online on the ordinance? Who is supposed to be responsible for doing it?
It's never spelled out in the ordinance.
So what authority do we have to tell the county judge to have his people, or the assessor's office to tell his people to do this?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just asking in general, but my recommendation is, can the Quorum Court contract someone to do this?
No.
Yes, there's an ordinance 1414-702 that says we do have the authority to do that.
We can't contract anybody for anything.
We can appoint a department to do that.
But we can't
But we cannot contract anything.
captain, we can appoint the department to be responsible for this. We can legally do that. State statutes, 1472.
And was not that responsibility done by the mapping department before? I don't know whether that was a voluntary thing or what, but that's who was doing it before.
Yes.
Should it not, since those responsibilities have now been transferred, should those not go to that office as well?
No.
Joanne's office and the responsibility she was assumed here, since all of that moved to her, of course, maybe Candy was doing it on a voluntary basis. I don't know.
Yes.
But I don't think this had anything to do with that.
No, it probably didn't, but I know she had assumed that responsibility.
Well, I think Joanne and I are more than willing. I've got a pretty sharp lady in my office that will train on this. I kind of think we're making something bigger out of it than what it is. We have people on the payroll already. Joanne's willing to train one of her, well, somebody else is going to train them, I'm not training them. But, I mean, whoever knows about it, I don't think it's all that big a deal. I mean, whoever knows about it, I don't think it's all that big a deal when they just kind of schedule them
I think
month to
before this
month.
fell underneath the judges. I mean, that's where Candy did the inventory, which wasn't mapping, but she did and that was under the judge.
I wondered if it was a voluntary thing.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know, where we put the job qualifications in their duties, and as needed. You know what, that's where it qualifies.
Yeah.
So that's what my department does, as needed.
Right.
Are you willing to do it, Joanne? I mean,
To have the responsibility for my office?
Yeah.
I don't think courthouse security doesn't really fall under mapping, I mean, or assessors. I would think that's in the judge's purview.
if we designate it under the county judge, are you two willing to work with the county judge and do that?
Oh, absolutely. I think somebody from all of our offices needs to be trained. Somebody from the sheriff's office needs to be trained.
Because I also, frankly, it falls under the judge's office too. The judge presides over the Quorum Court meetings, is in charge of the Quorum Court meeting. And, I mean, I think it falls under the county judge. And I think you have two women that are willing to do it for you as long as you say you'll be in charge of it.
No, Dave, you got anybody that works for you under 30 years old that... You know, one truck driver is a smoke rate, I see him as kind of young, start, a few hours.
Anybody else? Okay.
Sounds like there needs to be an ordinance drawn up to put some teeth into this and make it specific as to who is responsible, not just saying, are you willing to do it?
Anyone else? Tom?
I don't think we can take courthouse security away from the judge. It's his job. This is part of courthouse security. It's part of running the Quorum Court meetings. We don't need an ordinance to do that. It's the judge's office. And I think the judge can authorize Joanne and Cindy and whoever else to assist him, and we can get volunteers from each office. I suspect there's some, and I think the judge's assistant ought to do it. She's here in these meetings, and she can do it occasionally. She's close enough to 30 that she can learn quicker than I am. But let's get a group of people, and Sam can work with Joanne and Cindy and choose the people and have a group that's trained to do it so it gets done and our meetings get back on the air where they're supposed to be.
Go on.
That was my understanding again, because I think, I'm looking at it now, and the old part of me has lost the name. But she knows that she's willing to do it, everybody's willing to have somebody do it, but it's always been under the judge. I think everybody's in agreement with that, so it's kind of a no-brainer. We get some backup people, so that we don't have one person in the county that knows how to do it.
Well, there's a whole bunch of people that's willing to do it, but it's just like having a softball team, somebody's got to be in charge.
Right.
And so we've got to designate somebody that's gonna be in charge of it, and there's a whole bunch of people that's willing to help them.
Yeah. So if it's already under the judge, that's somebody in charge, and the rest of us fill in the gaps.
No.
Say, a while back, Katie gave me a quote to replace a lot of this equipment for Wilson's TV and everything, and, is that,
We took care of that, we put that in the budget a year ago.
and you got it already replaced? So it's updated now? Okay, good. I was saying, maybe that's why. You're right.
Anyone else? This is my turn.
On this subject, I think...
Are you all to look at it?
No, I've got other comments, but instead of changing the subject...
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I talked to Cindy yesterday about the treasurer's report and some of the budget reports that we got. And since I'm online and not on paper, it's hard for me to find things. But in going through the budget reports that we got, I had some questions, and I asked Cindy to explain them to me, and she did. And I thought maybe the rest of you would be interested in understanding why, if you look at the budget summary reports, we've got budget summaries of 13 and 14, 2 years. And it shows on the 13 summary that we're in the 14th month of year 2013. In the 14 summary, it shows that we haven't appropriated or transferred any money in year 14 to anybody's budget. And I didn't understand how that worked, so I called Cindy and asked her, and I'd like to, does anybody here understand how it works? Gail, can you tell me what that means, that we haven't transferred or appropriated any money for this year?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking if you, I didn't understand. I asked a question, do you here understand it? I'd like to ask Cindy to explain it to us, if you guys don't understand it. Now, if it's just me, I'm the only one dumb enough not to understand it, I don't need to do this.
Well, a transfer is not an expenditure. So if you're looking at what we spent per month, you're looking at the month-to-date expenditure, or year-to-date. So if you're looking at month 2, you all should have had month 2 and month 14 from Jamie's office. She could probably explain this better than I. But if we have a 13th and 14th month, what we're doing is finishing up the previous year. We always have some expenditures that come in late. We have to work to get those invoices in so that we can pay them. And it has to come out of the budget where it was originally budgeted, if it is that year's date. We're not able to pay a 14 bill out of a 13 budget, and vice versa. So that's why we go with an extra month or two. And I have to close the books December 31st. I'm done. After that, then we have to carry the 13 budget over a month or two to take care of those leftover bills.
Well, Cindy, that's what we cleaned up in the cleanup ordinance last month, right? So this 13 budget is done now. We've cleaned it all up.
It's done.
Everything's paid, everything's done. Month 14, finish that. But I still don't understand why we haven't spent money, why we don't show that we've spent money out of the 14 budget in the first 2 months of the year. Now, you explained it to me yesterday, but I
haven't spent money?
Well, we spent money, but we haven't appropriated it. We don't have any transfers or appropriations.
Well, we haven't had any. I went back and looked, and we haven't appropriated.
Because we have our budget, everybody's using their budget. Why would we need money? Nobody came to ask for it.
What about the ordinances we did last month on the road department where we transferred that money?
That was an appropriation of money already in the fund.
Right.
It didn't need to be transferred. That was money we got in that we did not know we were getting.
Right.
And it has to be appropriated, but it's in that fund already.
So it comes in and it goes in the fund. And it doesn't, even though we didn't have it, we had budgeted.
Not that, no. No.
Okay.
At the end of the year, no, I think it was January. we got that money, and I looked for half a day to see who was getting money, it's $171,000, wasn't it? Okay, and so that was the money that come in, that is in addition to what the road and bridge is gonna spend, okay? We only budgeted what they had in their fund in 2013, because we don't know what they're gonna get, from the state on the jobs that they're working on that particular fund. So that's why we do extra appropriations in the road and bridge, you know, for floods and whatever else bridges going out and that type of stuff.
Does that mean if the road department follows the budget precisely, then at the end of the year, that will be a carryover, that amount that came in?
Well, it shouldn't be, because we appropriated that for them to spend.
When did we appropriate that for them to spend? It doesn't show as an appropriation on here. That's what I'm asking. Tim's nodding, maybe he understands and he can explain to us. I'm confused. I don't understand.
When we did a cleanup ordinance, to clean up everything from 13, all the money that was spent on the cleanup ordinance came out of carryover funds and didn't come out of new money that was in the routine budget, right?
That's right.
So that's the reason none of the 2014 budget money was used.
I understand, but we got that money in from the road department, $117,000.
171.
I mean, $171,000 that came in. She just said it was appropriated. I don't see it on a 14 appropriation line, and it wasn't part of 13. So
If you may have it on your next report, if I have one of those in there, because we had our meeting on February 28th.
Okay.
We busted our butt to get all that cleaned up, so we can run into a 15th month. But I'm gonna skip the FEMA one we did that Monday, so it would have been a different March. So I apologize.
No, I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to understand.
I think it's only March, so it's gonna show in your
Yeah, but
next.
it's income to the county.
We did get the cleanup one though.
Yeah, it's reimbursement, but it's income. It's money that comes into the county, and it has to be accounted for. And what she's saying is that because we met on the last day of the month, or the ordinance passed that day, she didn't have time to appropriate
I did
it.
that one on
So it should be on an appropriation line. We just didn't have time to do it.
Right, I just did clean up.
Okay.
Close out that month because it was the last day and
That's why I was confused, because I knew we had some money that had come in that didn't show up here for the month, and I'm just trying to understand this. I'm not trying to criticize anybody, it's just, it's a confusing process, and I didn't want that $171,000 lost or confused.
Oh, it will be.
That money, that $171,000 is not showing as income though, 'cause that's just reimbursing us for money that we spent repairing those roads, right?
It is reimbursement, but we will spend it on future projects. I believe that's what we do, whenever, we go ahead and appropriate.
It's income to the county, and it's income to the county, and we'll spend it later on something else, just because we've already spent money for the project that was paying for, doesn't mean we appropriated this new money. This is new money cash to us.
Can I say something to that?
Absolutely.
I think if you look at one of those that comes in payment, we did his job for less than what they paid us. It's part of the profit.
It is. It's reimbursement, and it's our repayment actually for our built-in costs, our labor costs, our machinery costs of doing that. So it pays us, we come out ahead on the income part.
Not on that.
Yeah.
Who knows about the next one? Anyone else? Are y'all through? Anything else coming up?
Just waiting for you.
Do what?
Just waiting for you.
Do what?
Judge's comments, is that what you're at? Okay.
Go back to debating on this meeting. You don't pass an ordinance that would be done, and I understand that. I had a person that did it for me, I no longer have it. I no longer have any extra money to do it with. Is that classified under secretarial job? If I have to have someone to do that, was that classified to the secretarial job?
I never was classified.
How would you classify it? If you want my secretary to do it, wouldn't that be a secretarial job?
Well, she's your administrative assistant.
Not a
Wouldn't that
secretary.
still be classified as secretarial work?
No, not necessarily.
I think it's part of courthouse security and running the Quorum Court meetings, which is part of your duties.
You're probably right and I'm probably wrong, but I don't look at it that way.
Can I say one thing right quick?
Yeah.
We're not telling you that your secretary has to do it. We're saying that somebody has to be in charge of getting it done, and there's been a whole bunch of people that have volunteered to help with it.
You're absolutely right. 14-14-9-2, and I'm not an attorney. So the secretary of the county quorum court shall be the clerk of the county court of each county unless otherwise provided by county ordinance, which you all can do. Alternative designation, a quorum court by ordinance may provide for the establishment of minimum qualifications and an appropriation for the employment of a secretary of the court. The employee so designated shall be a staff member of the county clerk or the county judge, which either one, as may be specified by the orders. Where the separate position of secretary is created by ordinance, all legislative duties prescribed in this chapter for a county clerk shall therefore become the duties of the secretary. So I think if you want me to do it, you pass the ordinance, and I'll do my best to do it. But I think that says that you have to give me compensation for someone to do it. That's my opinion.
My opinion is, I respectfully disagree. I think it's not a secretarial function. It's not clerical in effect. The county clerk is the quorum court secretary. If we need something done, we go to her to do it. But this is part of courthouse security, part of your job to run the quorum court meetings, and so I don't think it's secretarial. I think you're correct in that the clerk is our secretary, but this isn't a secretarial job. It never has been. Candy did it at your direction. She was doing it for you. You run it all along. It hasn't been under Jamie. It's been under you, and it's still under you, and you've got people who do it.
You took away the person I had that knew how to do it, and I don't have anybody else that knows how to do it.
But we're trying to train people to do it, to solve that problem, and you've got volunteers.
I think you do it before you put it I may be wrong. Jenny?
I think that's what she's doing right now. I think what you read is what she's doing right now.
She's our secretary.
Yeah, that's my interpretation is what Amy's doing right now is what that stuff is saying, right there?
Yeah, I think we may get kind of sucked into this secretary word. I think that really just means that Jamie just to keep up with all the minutes and things like that, and if you guys need stuff printed or typed up, she does all that work, but I would not say that she's an assistant to the judge. She's really just kind of keeping up with all of the materials that come through here today. I think from a practical matter, I think probably when she created that ordinance, it said that the video will occur. I tend to think that probably would fall under you, Judge, that just as far as managing the meeting. Not to say that you have to be the one to record it, but if you could kind of assist in getting the training done and then also manning a list of who's going to do it when, I think that would probably do it. I know I have at least 2 people in mind for my office that I would like to be trained on it, so if we can help at all, just let me know.
I don't mind it if you give me somebody who knows how.
Okay, well, I think Dan Wilson can, based on what Joanne's saying, come over and do that training. that we just need to set up a time, and I'll make sure someone from my office is there.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate if I take charge and say, can you designate someone next week to get each one of you guys to meet with the judge, to meet with Wilson, to come up here and do the training, so the judge can schedule those individuals each month to say you're going to do the March, or you're going to do the April month, June? Is that possible?
Oh, it'd be fine with me.
I think that's just a practical matter. I think everybody's willing to do it.
Are you willing to do that, Sam?
I mean, I know the sheriff will look at it.
If you all don't show up at the same time, it's gonna take, him quite a lot of training people, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got a month.
Don?
One thing about that, Galen, say you come over here next week, or somebody from office comes over here next week, learns it, and then they don't do it till August, you think they'll remember how to do everything? You know what I mean? Because I know anytime you learn a new skill, if you don't do it for a long time, you gotta learn it again. So maybe why not have that many people come learn, because otherwise they may not get to it for 7 or 8 months. And with me, I would say, well, I learned a little bit about this now, what do I do? But the person that did it every month would be, at least real frequently, would be better skilled at it.
We've been talking about this since January.
Yeah.
And this is ridiculous. Someone needs to step up to the plate and do it, okay?
Yeah.
So if we can get 50 million people in here, so there's absolutely no excuses why someone's not sitting there doing it, that's the good. If it takes one person dedicated to it, who comes in here, let's just get it done.
Yeah, can we not write down on a sheet of paper, numbered 1 through 15, step by step as to what is done?
Yeah.
Laminate it, throw it to the damn desk, today.
Let me make a suggestion that Jack is the one who set this up. Jack can work with the judge, help get the people trained, do the list, and make sure that we have it. You're right, we just need a list of what's done and somebody to do it. And Jack, you've taken the lead on this, why don't you handle it?
Am I? Okay, I've had several people say, Rhonda can do it, Rhonda can do it, Rhonda can do it. When y'all eliminated Candy, there was not time. She did not train me, she didn't train Joanne's girl, she didn't train anybody to do anything. She had about 27 days. There was about 8 days that was snowing, and she took a lot of comp days because she wanted to get them in. So I had the inventory thrown in my lap, thrown to the wolves with it. I've had to use Jamie's girls to teach me how to use a spreadsheet I've never used. I have not been ugly about this thing. I'm telling you, I haven't. But this machine kind of scares me because all the important parts of it, the turning it on, the videotaping and everything, is back there in that 911 office. I don't think 5 or 6 people need access to that building or to that room. You might ask the sheriff what he feels about that, but I think it's kind of like having too many cooks in the kitchen. You have a lot of people running back there and trying to do stuff. It's going to get tore up. When Candy left, she brought the machine in there and put it on Sam's desk. She said, it's broke, there's a part ordered. So that was my training. I'm not trying to be ugly, you guys. I would be more than happy to run my finger along that little screen and videotape this for you. But one of you guys said a monkey could run it, so maybe you should find the monkey. But, I'm more than happy to help do this, and I will be glad. But there was no training. I can't even tell you where to turn the machine on. So if we have someone to train us, I'm not trying to do it, but I'm more than happy to help, and I'd be more than happy to learn to run this. But there is just not any training available to me when she left. And I don't even know where the machine is to turn it on. And the microphones, I believe, are down in the veterans office. So, I will learn with some training. It's not a matter of being ugly. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's working right now. Everything you're saying has been recorded right now.
Monkey.
the downloading part of it that's the problem.
Can you copy it off then?
I can get it done. I'll put it that way.
Back in hand.
Can me and you work together, Judge?
Well, that,
All right. I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
I just don't want it with nobody teach me how to do it.
It'll get done.
You have to do it.
You ever seen a softball coach get out there and play much? Well, I did too.
Not for very long.
All right.
Move with her.
I moved.
All in favor? Aye.
I told you,